YouTuber and podcaster Ethan Klein has been suspended after he said he hopes Ben Shapiro gets gassed first if there's another Holocaust. It's a shocking, crude, and crass comment, but I'll just say it outright. You know, we defended Ethan Klein, his right to free speech on Timcast IRL when the story came out. I mean, look, I normally don't comment on commentators. Many of you might not even know who this guy is. But there's a big thing happening pertaining to Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson, which makes this story particularly relevant and important in the culture war. But I digress. You might not know who he is. He used to be a lot bigger. He had a big YouTube channel. He had millions of subs, stopped producing on it, started doing a podcast. His channel seems to be kind of on the decline. And so I think what we're seeing here is the death throes, the death rattle. That is, this is the dude. This dude's from another era. And I think the gist of this story is he's a guy who's defended cancel culture. He's a guy who said cancel culture was a good thing. He's a guy who then makes a very, very crude joke, as he calls it. I mean, I don't view it that way, but, you know. And now he's suspended. His response is to blame Ben Shapiro and claim white supremacists like Ben Shapiro or something. There's a story here that I think gets to the heart of the shallowness. That's probably not a good word for it. Is that even a word? The limited function of what these people actually advocate for. And I think it really breaks down the culture war really well. That is to say, Ethan Klein is an edgy boy comedian from back in the day, 10 years ago, longer. He was making YouTube videos that were silly, that were gags. And now all of a sudden he's making podcasts where he's hanging out with Hassan Piker and they're talking about political issues. And why? I mean, this guy doesn't have anything to do with politics. He doesn't know anything about politics. Why is he in it? Politics became pop culture. So let me break down for you the story so far. And then this is a really great, again, I want to stress this point. I normally don't care to talk about commentators themselves, but this story is a perfect example of the modern culture war and why we're seeing this level of shock content and why we're seeing the fake political positions of the fake left. Look, Jacobin magazine. I know a lot of you guys, we're not fans of socialism, but I have a subscription to Jacobin. Why? Well, that's the real left. And I mean it. And I disagree with them on a lot of political issues. But you know what? They'll tell you the truth. Look, I'm not going to say they're perfect, but the right's not perfect either. But I got Jacobin magazine. I can open it up and they're like, the Democrats are lying to you about inflation. They're like, free speech must be defended. They're saying things, like war is bad. Joe Biden sucks. I appreciate that stuff. I want to hear those opinions. Ethan Klein is the fake left. I'm not saying this to be disrespectful or start a beef or anything, but Hassan and Ethan are shock jock content. Seriously, I encourage you to watch his show for real. I would imagine that if you're a fan of Timcast IRL or of these videos, you'd probably get through a few minutes before being like, dude, I'm sorry, I can't watch that. And I'll explain in a minute. But let's start here and talk about what this phenomenon is. From the Jerusalem Post. YouTuber Ethan Klein slammed Ben Shapiro because the pundit's Daily Wire outlet employs political commentator Candace Owens, who the YouTuber said had taught West his anti-Semitic rhetoric. So basically, this is the story right here. He said if there's another Holocaust and people start rounding up the Jews again, that he hopes Ben Shapiro gets gassed first or last, whatever that's supposed to mean. In fact, when he started saying it, the interesting thing is his crew cuts to a breakaway because this has happened to Ethan Klein before. He said things. He once called for a terror attack on a Republican convention. I think it was the Republican convention. I think it was NRA maybe. He called for a terror attack, overtly called for it. They cut away, come back, and he goes, okay, sorry, guys, I got a little carried away there. Ethan Klein doesn't know anything about guns. Ethan Klein doesn't know anything about policy. There's a reason he's doing this, and it's because he's desperate for relevance. I am not saying that to make a dig against Ethan. I'll actually show you. I have the evidence. Right? Or I should say, I have evidence which leads me to believe this is the case. Here is the tweet from Ethan Klein. He says, a few white supremacists successfully lobbied YouTube to suspend me, a Jewish dual citizen of Israel and the USA, for anti-Semitism. Ben Shapiro and friends can virtue signal all they want, but ultimately, they are the ones platforming dangerous anti-Semites. All I did was point it out. Let me stop right there before reading. Actually, no. Let me read this. He says, Ben Shapiro, who was happy to perform a purity test on me and declare me a bad Jew for criticizing Israel, hosts Candace, I'm not reading this quote, Owens on his website, The Daily Wire. He is constantly excusing, enabling, and platforming real anti-Semitism. He goes on to say, the joke that I was suspended for simply points out that Ben, who is desperate to be accepted by his Christian nationalist friends as white, will only ever be seen by them as a useful idiot, and sadly for him, okay, I'm gonna go. He's got a lot more tweets, but first, let's start here. Ben Shapiro, according to the Anti-Defamation League, was the #1 target for white supremacist, anti-Semite, neo-Nazi types. Ethan Klein is arguing that white supremacists got him banned because of what he said about gassing Ben Shapiro. I got to pause right there. Anybody who knows anything about politics knows that that statement makes literally no sense. Ethan, buddy, white supremacists like your joke. That's why we didn't. But apparently they don't understand this. You see, this is what you need to understand about the modern political space. Someone like me, you see Ethan Klein coming out here saying he's a Jewish dual citizen and all that. Sure, and I think that matters. Good for him. And then I will, of course, point out that I'm, in fact, mixed race second generation. So let me tell you, Ethan, you and I, we agree on this. White supremacists, bad. Don't like them. Really bad. Yeah, we would like that stuff to stop. But, bro, your joke played to them, and they like that. Just look at what the ADL has to say about it. This is an important point to refute. And then I also got to point out this right here where he says, Ben, who is desperate to be accepted by Christian nationalist friends, will only ever be seen by them as a Jew. I'm sorry. Ben Shapiro is the principal talent, probably one of the most prominent conservative voices in the country, as is Dennis Prager, and they're both Jewish. So, no, I mean, this literally makes no sense. The Daily Wire has their top personality, most famous and biggest moneymaker is a Jewish guy. You will not be able to claim that Christian nationalists are looking down on him. They support him. And Ben Shapiro talks about Judaism all the time. If anything, he's helping spread his ideas and understanding to people who maybe don't know. He says, the people reporting me accepting Ben are tiki torch carrying white Christian nationalists. They do not give an F about anti-Semitism or Jewish people. They revel in the fact that YouTube and other institutions are so quick to act on bad faith and malicious outrage. Then why do those people, the white supremacists, target Ben Shapiro? That's what the Anti-Defamation League said. Don't believe them? Fine, whatever. Ethan says they are currently the greatest beneficiaries of cancel culture, identity politics, and moral outrage. It's incredible that they have become the party of free speech while decrying and lobbying for my deplatforming. They both condemn and defend cancel culture in the same breath. Now, you see, this is why I say, Ethan is not political. He doesn't know what's going on. He doesn't know anything about this. Ben Shapiro defended you. I mean, he criticized your policies. He said you shouldn't have been banned. Timcast IRL, we talked about this, and we said you should not be suspended for this. I specifically said he's not calling for violence or anything. He's just saying something awful. He should be allowed to say awful things. So who are you referring to, Ethan? He's making it up. That's what they do. He's making it up. This is performative outrage. It genuinely, because I can break down how none of this makes sense. It's performative outrage because Ethan Klein is not political. He's only in politics now because politics became pop culture with Trump. Because of this, people who have no business in politics all of a sudden now are in the political arena and don't understand it. Let me put it this way. When Ethan Klein was making FUPA videos, fatty upper pubic area videos, and they were good. It was good comedy. He was making all of these funny, silly, rambunctious videos. I was covering politics. I was actively working in nonprofits, fundraising, activism, policy, my whole life. I've worked some of the biggest nonprofits. I wasn't making edgy comedy videos. I was covering major protests. Once politics started becoming pop culture, it meant that channels like mine started becoming more and more prominent. Comedians like Joe Rogan, who used to tell jokes about cats, all of a sudden now he's talking politics. Politics became pop culture. Ethan Klein, seeing that he needs to shift with the times, enters the political fray, but doesn't know anything about it. And here you are. He goes on to mention that he's filed several lawsuits to defend the First Amendment, and he has. And this was back in the day. He mentions that someone was trying to come after him for copyright when he was engaging in fair use. He won, and good for him. He says, once again, I humbly request that all naysayers, haters, detractors can, suck his tiny wiener or whatever. He says, our current lawsuits with Ryan Kavanaugh seeks to accomplish the same. I will not back down to be silenced by bad faith provocateurs. I make no apology. As Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings, if only he meant it. Now, here's the question. Ethan Klein made a bad comment about Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro doesn't know who Ethan Klein is. He's now engaging in a spat with Ben Shapiro. Like I said, it seems the point here is specifically for audience, for clicks, for entertainment. Ben Shapiro responds, I don't believe that Ethan Klein should be suspended from YouTube for his awful garbage, but I'll shed no tears for a person who has routinely engaged in cancellation of others. World's smallest violin. Here is a tweet Ben Shapiro posts. Ethan Klein said, years ago, I interviewed Jordan Peterson before I was very familiar with his politics. He was an interesting guest who I enjoyed sitting with, but especially now, I can see he's a dangerous gateway to alt-right transphobia and COVID misinfo. I removed both interviews today. Why? A mob got angry with Ethan, and so he removed Jordan Peterson. Here we can move forward and see Jordan Peterson's response. Also, I should warn you that those who engage in cancel culture generally live to regret it. I'm not going to come after you except politely in this Twitter stream, but the chickens will definitely come home to roost, as they always do. Ethan said they are currently the greatest beneficiaries of cancel culture, identity politics, and moral outrage. It's incredible they have become the party of free speech. We read this. Let me show you several times this has come back to haunt Ethan Klein. So following these Twitter thread with Jordan Peterson responding, there was another story where Ethan said, today we have no sponsors because I'm an existential threat to gay rights and all progress, so saith Ethan Klein. Apparently he had inadvertently mocked, made light of a gay stereotype, and for this he lost his sponsors. Cancel culture came for him. Okay, here's Zero Hedge. YouTuber who said cancel culture was a good thing gets canceled. I believe this was that story, but take a look at this Twitter thread. Ethan Klein responds to Jordan Peterson saying, this is my problem, Jordan. You asked for specific reasons, I provided them. Instead of acknowledging my response, you retract further into your bubble of flatterers and devotees, talking of how you schooled me on cancel culture. You didn't school me, Jordan. Your room is as messy as your mind. Actually, Ethan, he did. But I mean, I don't think Jordan came out and said, oh, smack down, I smack you down. Nothing like that. That's not Jordan Peterson. Ethan Klein says, and Jordan, regarding cancel culture, the only thing that has ever guided me is my own moral compass. Everything else is just noise. The mob is free to cancel me as it will, and they have plenty of times. And actually, canceling, as you call it, sometimes is a good experience, as painful as it is. The times when I've received the most flack on things, I've said are the times I've received the most flack on things, I've said are the times I've learned the most about myself and the world and how to be more mindful and caring of others. Man, I butchered that. He said, canceling is sometimes a good experience. Ethan, you made a joke, as you say, that Ben Shapiro should be gassed first. Okay, maybe you should understand why people are upset with you for that. Now, why is it when you get canceled over your sponsors, you say you're an existential threat, but when you make comments about Jewish people, you think it's white supremacists? Because he's lying. He is. Let me show you. This is the H3 podcast. I got a lot of subscribers. I got way more subscribers than we do on their podcast. Granted, I suppose if you were to take active production, I have more subscribers between my 3 channels, but there's probably overlap. So more unique subscribers probably to H3 podcast. So I decided to take a look at their latest show. And for the first 5 or 10 minutes, I started to understand what his show was. And normally I'm not so crude and crass as, say, someone like H3. But now I'm going to be. I watched a couple of his clips, and I really started to figure something out. Yo, I'm sorry, H3 podcast listeners. Not all of you, but this show really is quite idiocracy. In this latest episode, it's him arguing with his hosts, and it's some of the lowest common denominator content I've ever seen. That's just me. I know a lot of people like it, but I view it as lowbrow. That's just it. I am not saying you're not allowed to like lowbrow content. I mean, some people like Big Bang Theory. I personally don't. When you watch Timcast IRL, we immediately start with, boom, introduction. Here's what's happening in the news. Here's the story. Here's what we think. Check out our website. Promo pitch. Here's our guest. Let's talk politics. I generally avoid talking about other commentators or doing drama bait stuff. It's why, and I'll say it, it's why we won't have people like Sam Cedar on the show. We invited him on the show in good faith. He turns it into drama. I just don't talk about it. I'm bringing it up now because it's relevant to the context here. But there's a reason why we don't invite certain people on the show. People whose whole YouTube, everything they do on YouTube is just like ragging on YouTubers and doing drama TMZ style YouTuber stuff. We don't. Yesterday we had Doug Mastriano on the show. He's running for governor in Pennsylvania. I think he's pretty great. We'll see how things play out. Yeah, that's what we like to do. We like to have, people who are running for office, members of Congress, and talk about high-level political issues and civil war, right? You know how it goes. Ethan Klein is an edgy boy. And I'm not saying that as disrespectful. I mean, he's an edgy comedian. He started talking politics because it is pop culture, for whatever reason. But Ethan Klein is not a political guy. The end result is fairly obvious. You take a look at the H3 podcast. They've gotten 14.619 million views in the last 30 days, down 37%, and they've lost 10,000 subscribers. I mean, that sucks, man. He's on average losing subscribers every single day. I have to imagine that something like that eats away at you. I talk about this quite a bit. I should say I talk about it every so often. YouTubers who break down. Take a look at any one of these YouTubers when they have their breakdown moment and they go, guys, I just can't do this anymore. It's just too stressful. And then they want to take a break. Typically, you'll notice among these YouTubers that their previous videos were in decline, or their viewership was in decline. This is what we see. People who are on YouTube are looking at their real-time analytics going down every day, and they don't know why. And they try as hard as they can to keep viewership, but they're losing it, and they're like, no, what am I doing wrong? Why don't people like me? The reality is, dude, ebbs and flows. There's nothing you can do about it. I mean, during the 2020 election, we were getting 150,000 concurrent viewers on Timcast IRL. Now we're getting 45. And at one point in 2021, we were getting 27,000. I know that's a lot for a lot of people are like, that's actually a lot, but that was low for us. Going from 150K and a year later, we're all of a sudden doing 27 on some nights. Granted, we were averaging 35, but our lowest point. And I'm like, it is what it is. I don't do this show because we're going to get 1 billion viewers. I never did. I've only ever made these videos because I have 1 million things going through my mind that I want to talk about. And I think that's all you need. So for us, that's led to us generally improving. And we have our dips. Sometimes it's because of the weather. Sometimes people go outside. Sometimes people party on Friday night. But what I see here with the H3 podcast, why would Ethan Klein constantly say things that are dancing on the edge of getting banned and then getting banned? Why would he make stereotypical jokes about gay people? I mean, we don't even do that. We don't do any of that stuff. They say we're conservative far. It's like, dude, the most we get into it is outright saying, like, we think trans people should live and be happy, but we think parents should be the ones deciding and kids probably shouldn't get sex changes. I don't come out and scream and deride people and say things like this. I don't want to. I don't need to. I would rather be destitute and homeless than engage in content like that. A lot of people say like, oh, but Tim, you talk about civil war all the time. Like, yeah, I genuinely believe these based on the reports we've seen from CIA operatives, security officials, Princeton professors. And I think there's a strong possibility of things like that happening. I don't just say that people are, some people, it's the weirdest thing. There's an article about me or something where I criticized Andy Ngo, and then people were like, that proves you're grifting. And I'm like, no, it proves the opposite. If I wanted to come out and just pander, I would just defend everything everyone ever did. Who would I be pandering to? The left? They don't like me. No, I say what I mean. I try to be tactful. We've had Andy on the show a couple times since then, and he's fantastic. Here's the issue. What I have pulled up right here is Social Blade tracking H3 podcast analytics, and they're way down. Okay, he's down 37%. Don't ask me why. I don't know. I watched his latest episode, and for the first several minutes, it's them playing this intro with music and weird imagery, and it's artistic. I'm not trying to drag it, and it's him saying, "Guys, stop! Guys, come on, man! Guys, stop!" And then his producer's like, "Sorry," and I'm just like, I get it. It's more like it's entertainment. It's not politics. You come to Timcast IRL, you're going to get politics. Here's where we're at. We're down. We were getting 60 some odd million a year ago, so we are down. But we're generally improving. We're up 20,000 subs in the past month. 29.217 million views in the last 30 days. We're up 23%. Plus, I've got this channel, my other channel, all generally improving. And all we strive to do is be cordial, amicable, host good guests, and talk about important issues. Here's why I'm showing you Timcast IRL Social Blade. We are not the same show. H3 and Timcast are not the same show. I do not expect Ethan to ever try to emulate us, nor do I think there's a correlation between our viewership in such that he should be like us to a certain degree. What I do want to say is One, I would say, Ethan, get off politics. You can see it's already getting you suspended. You're not a political guy. You're doing leftovers. Bro, I feel like you are dipping your toes in to try and get views or something, but you're just not there. You don't know this stuff. What you said about white supremacists getting you banned makes no sense. The Anti-Defamation League says Ben Shapiro is their primary target. If anything, they like the joke you made. If you knew anything about the political landscape, you'd probably recognize that. The reality is you said something offensive to Jewish people, and the Jerusalem Post wrote it up. It is probably viewers from places like this who complained to YouTube and got you taken down. I can only assume you're either mistaken or lying. You choose which one makes more sense. But I will tell you this. If you want to get into politics, be calm, have fun, be a bit irreverent, but be serious. Otherwise, dude, this ain't it. You know, you had 6 million some odd subscribers on your H3H3 productions of doing gags and comedy. Why'd you stop? You started doing the podcast. You hosted interesting people like Jordan Peterson. That was good. Then you started to pander to people like Hassan. Hoping for what? More viewership? Bro, when you went away from your base, you lose. Let me put it this way. Bro, if you want to be in the realm of culture war politics, you can be, but recognize that a large portion, if not most of your audience, they're with us. They don't like cancel culture, even when it's you getting banned. But they don't like what you said about Ben Shapiro. They believe in free speech. They believe in edgy comedy. They don't like leftism. Maybe some of your fans did. Maybe you're trying to ingratiate yourself with the sponsors. Well, congratulations. Your views are down substantially. Now, it's probably got other channels and everything too, but bro, your podcast is bleeding subscribers. Have you stopped to ask yourself why? You stayed on this course and you are losing subscribers. Get back to being edgy comedy. Don't be this, shock leftist. Just talk about pop culture stuff and challenge those who would seek to take away the fun from life. Instead, you're marching alongside with them. Bro, why are you making comments about Palestine and Israel? I don't even do that, and I've been in politics for decades. We talk about Palestine and Israel, and I ultimately say, look, man, I don't know a whole lot about it. The history there is pretty crazy. The other day, Doug Mastriano said he didn't want to legalize recreational pot. I actually think it should be legal. And I think we should pardon a lot of these guys. He said, no, look, I've looked at the data from Oregon, Colorado, et cetera, and I don't think it plays out. I don't think the money's coming in. I think crime has gone up. And I said, okay, look, I haven't read what he's read. What am I supposed to say? I think you're wrong. I've not read that stuff. I don't know the point you're making, but you're wrong. No, we can't do that, man. So maybe that's the difference. I'm not trying to make comedy, okay? If you are trying to make comedy and entertainment, I just say stay away from the politics. Otherwise, this is what's going to happen. I see it happen to friends or whatever. But there you go, man. Just to bring it all back together. The point I'm bringing up, when people see their followerships decline, when pop culture became political, people who weren't political tried getting into the space, and this is what's happening. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.